Hey everyone, I've just rewired my race car, so I've remembered all of my skills from when I was a electronics technician. So I thought I'd share some of my skills and experience with how to do wiring. And I've seen a lot of bad wiring over the years, in cars particularly, where people just got no clue, or, and you can't blame them. They just haven't had much guidance from anybody, so they don't know what to do. So hopefully I can help you guys to give you some tips on how to join wires together. Basically, that's pretty much all it is. I'll tell you a bit of a story first. I bought an old Celica a while ago, and the radio, the speakers kept cutting out, and it took me months and months and months to actually get to looking at it. And I thought there was something wrong inside of the stereo, because the car's an '82 model, so it's really, really old, and it had been out in the sun all of its life. So I was imagining all the solder joints had all cracked and blah blah blah. But anyway, what I found out when I pulled the dash apart and had a look, that it was a lot simpler than that. And I'll show you basically what happened. So there was a connector like this. This isn't the exact connector, but there were wires hanging out the back of the stereo, which all looked pretty good. And what I found is, well, somebody had done this. Crazy. So they got these wires for the speakers, and they just shoved them in there like that, expecting, oh yeah, that's a good connection, no worries. But what was happening is when we go over a bump, you go over a bump and then it disconnects, and you go over another bump, then it reconnects, and so the speakers were cutting in and out, and that's basically what was happening. Obviously that's really, really bad. So what I'm going to show you, how to do it properly. Okay, so you've got two wires, you need to join them together. Hopefully you guys can see me properly. Let me just angle that a little bit. Obviously I haven't prepared this very well. You've got two wires, right? Let's just trim them off. And I'll also show you another scenario that has been a bit dodgy that I have seen. Let me just trim those so they don't have any insulation on them. And the most common thing that I see is this, where somebody has gone to the effort of trimming the insulation off two wires, and as you can see there's two wires there. Hope you can see them clearly. And what they do, they basically just twist them together. They get them like this, and they twist one around the other. So you can see the red one stays straight, and then they twist it around like this. And they think, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And then they put some insulation tape on that. The problem is that's not a very strong joint. If you can look, you can see that it's sliding off, and there's no mechanical strength at all. So obviously that's not a good joint. And if you're lucky, people will actually wrap them in insulation tape like this quite badly, and quite often that'll fall off, and then they'll short out, and then you'll have lots of problems. And yeah, anyway, you find your car doesn't run because there's no the fuse blows, and yeah, you've got no car and you can't run. Anyway, so a better way to do it, slightly better way, so this is not too bad, is when you're doing it this way, you put the wires together and you actually wrap them around each other. So if you can see it like that, I'm actually wrapping them around each other. So that gives a connection that is mechanically strong, and you can see they don't want to fall apart. And if you want to make it super, super, super strong, which is what you should be doing anyway, you get a soldering iron like this. Don't touch that bit, very hot. Get some solder. And I'll just put that somewhere where you guys can see it properly. That's the problem with wire, it moves around too much. Okay, that's good enough. And what you do, you get the soldering iron and you get the solder, and this solder has got flux inside it, which helps the solder to flow. And basically, you just put the solder, I'll do it so you guys can see it, you put the solder onto the iron and the copper at the same time. You just feed it in. You can see all that smoke, that's coming from the flux, and the flux helps it flow, and you can see there that the solder has moved all along. And that's a reasonable joint, that's okay. For a beginner, that's not too bad. And then what you do, you can probably fold that over a little bit. Be careful, it's still pretty hot, so I'm touching it and it's a bit ouchy. And then you can run it like that, and then you can get a bit of insulation tape. This is basic. I'm going to go to a bit of a more professional joint in a moment, and you wrap it around. And what I generally do when I'm wrapping, I pull it so it stretches until you get close to the end. And if you keep stretching it right until the end, the problem is it lets go on its own. So you need to leave about maybe 1 centimetre, and then you just wrap it nicely around, and then it won't undo itself. Okay, and that's a reasonably okay joint for beginners. All right. Now, if anybody out there is a bit more professional and they want something a bit tidier, I'll show you what to do. Okay. Well, firstly, this is the way I do it. You can get actually special tools that take the insulation off, but I've been doing this for so long I can do this by feel now. So I can just sort of nibble around there and then just pull the insulation off. And what I always do, I always twist it. Right? So you can see all the strands are all loose at the moment. I twist them so they all stay together, and that's nice and neat. Okay, that's one. Now I'll do the other one. And I've done these 2 wires, I've chosen these 2 wires on purpose because they're different sizes, to show that you can actually put 2 different sizes wires together. Sizes of wire. So I'll twist that together. Okay, now this, I'm just about to show you the best joint. Okay, what you need to do, instead of sort of just twisting them that way, with this way, you put them half on half. So halfway up each one, and you actually twist one around the other. I know it's hard to see. You start twisting one, and then you twist the other one around the other one. And nobody actually taught me this, but I realised that this was a good thing to do when I'm looking at power lines, you know, the ones that are on, you know, in the sky. And you see how like big fat electrical cables like that are joined together, and they're actually joined together like this. And as you can see, it's a nice straight joint. It has mechanical strength. So I'm pulling on it reasonably hard and it's not moving at all. And what you do, you just get the soldering iron and solder it as normal. But the thing is, it's nice and neat. And then when you want to put a cover over it, it also looks neat. And what I like to do, I like to use heat shrink. So this stuff here, you can buy that from electronic stores. I buy it from J-Car in Australia. In America, I think the equivalent place is called Radio Shack, I think, if they're still around, I'm not really sure. We used to have an equivalent here called Tandy, but they're long gone. And basically you just get this stuff, and I'm not going to show you exactly this because it takes a while and it's noisy. Basically you just slide it on the wire, like so. Get it over the joint, like this, slide it on. And then you get a heat gun. I don't actually have a heat gun, but I have a old hairdryer that I use, which isn't quite hot enough. It's nearly hot enough, but it does shrink it. So basically you shoot hot air from a hairdryer on here, or a proper heat gun, if you've got enough money to buy a heat gun, and then that shrinks nicely over the joint. And then that's basically it. And then you've got a nice straight joint, you see there, and there is nothing sticking out, and it's all nice and neat. Sorry about that, my daughter came in, she didn't realise I was doing a video. Anyway, I used the opportunity to get my hairdryer out, which I can use to shrink this heat shrink. So I'll just show you the start of it, and then I'll pause it, and then I'll start it again so you can see the finished product. Okay, as you can see here, the heat shrink has shrunk onto the wire, and it's nice and tight, it doesn't slide around, so that is a ridiculously strong joint. If you pulled that wire until it broke, you'd probably find that the joint wouldn't break, and it would break somewhere along this wire. So that is a very, very strong joint there. So that's finished product. So as you can see, it's not too hard, and it's worthwhile taking the time to do it properly, because this will never be a problem ever again. The wire will never fall off, you'll never short it out onto anything else, and you'll never blow a fuse, and then you'll never get stuck in the middle of nowhere. So whenever you're doing wiring, it's important to do it properly. That's basically it, guys. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and welcome to good wiring in your car. And as I said, take your time and do it properly. It's worth it. Thanks. See you later. I forgot to say that this is my workshop. And if your workshop doesn't look like this, then you're doing it wrong. Notice how messy it is. This is an indicator of somebody who actually does a lot of work in the workshop. The most important ingredient is beer. You have to have beer. See you later.